Joining me today is Professor Rodrigo Zeidan, who has been my professor at the Copenhagen Business School this summer. I've had the pleasure of attending his course on personal finance and hearing his insights on how to make rational financial decisions, and I would love to share some of this knowledge with you all. Rodrigo is a full-time professor at NYU Shanghai and a visiting professor at other universities. He is the author of Economics of Global Business and has published articles for the New York Times, Harvard Business Review, and Bloomberg. Thank you for agreeing to talk with me today. Firstly, I'd like to get to know a bit more about your background. Can you tell me where in Brazil you came from, what your childhood looked like, and how you got to where you are now?
Yeah, well, it's a little bit of an unconventional journey. I grew up in Rio, in Brazil. Rio is, well, since used to be the Brazil's capital, but since the 60s it's not. I grew up in Rio, grew up middle class, then we became a lower middle class for a while, and then climbed again. We were maybe upper middle class in the beginning. But given that my mother divorced my father and took the three kids, and at the time she had to do everything by herself, I didn't have the opportunity to have a private education in Brazil. So everything that I did mostly was public education, which meant that I had to go to a public university as well because those are tuition free in Brazil. And I did my undergrads, I did my master's there. I started working as a instructor, and I decided to do my PhD in Brazil, which maybe not the smartest choice, but I finished. I started publishing in English. I got a job at Nottingham University in Ningbo in China, and and I went there. I already had an offer to go back to a business school in Brazil to teach executive education, so I did that as well. But in China, I liked the university so much, they liked me so much that I returned there every year, and eventually, what was a part-time appointment with Nottingham Nimbo turned into a part-time appointment with NYU Shanghai. They liked my work. They asked me to be there full time, and I've been living in China full time since then, 2016 maybe.
It's amazing where you've come from and where you are now. How would you describe the Brazilian culture and how does it compare to other cultures you've experienced throughout your life?
So the Brazilian culture, and I'm gonna take an economics point of view, right? Personal finance point of view, because we are extroverted, like culture, music, like all of this. Everybody knows football, which I don't care about. Everybody knows that, but we had hyperinflation until 93, 94. 94, when is the first economic plan that got rid of hyperinflation in Brazil, really took hold. So it's now 30 years, um, more or less. Was 1st July of 1994, if I'm not mistaken, where when Plano Real stabilized the economy. And what people don't understand is that a lot of decision making in Brazil, it still goes back to life under hyperinflation, which means that people do not know how to plan for the future, because in hyperinflation you cannot plan for the future, right? Everything changes every day. Prices go up every day, so you cannot really you literally do not know the real value of your wage at the end of the month. So the idea is that you cannot really make long-term plans, and this plagues Brazilian families and actually Brazilian companies as well, uh, up to today.
In our very first class, you said that the only condition for becoming rich was to take risk. But how much risk would you say is advisable for a person in their early 20s to take on?
It depends on their society, right? If you're poor and need to survive, you cannot take that much risk, right? That's we call this survival entrepreneurship at most, when people have to open business or go to the informal economy to survive. If you are going to a society like Denmark, which is really interesting, where we are right now, young people can take as much risk as they want because society will pick them up, and but they don't, right? So they can open businesses, but that's not what people want to do, because their life is very comfortable, and I understand this. They end up making very risk averse decisions. They go with the flow, come, study, go work for a company unemployment rate is 2.5%, so why take risks? It's the opposite. It's precisely because of all of this that young people in Denmark can afford to take much more risk than they do. But again, there is a lot about culture, there is a lot about social norms, there are a lot about sometimes personal preference that goes into this. But people, especially young people in rich economies, wealthy economies, and people from upper middle class and above, they can afford to take much more risk than they do. But again, they don't understand, and part of it is because they've been traumatized a little bit by previous generations, especially if previous generations had to work very hard. Then people understand that sacrifices must be made, and they don't want their children to make the same sacrifices they did, which is very natural. But older generations tend to actually educate their children to be more risk averse than they should be. But that is another problem altogether.
In one of our classes, you really changed my mindset on house buying. What factors should someone consider before buying a house?
So first of all, what people don't understand is that the people associate buying a house with security, and I understand how people behave that way. Is the old story of if you have a monumental economic crisis, you at least have a roof over your head. But that is not the way that it works. The reason for this is we are in Denmark. The reason that people made a lot of money in the housing market is precisely because housing is a risky investment. Because again, in finance, it's very simple. Only a risky asset will give you more than the risk-free rate of return. And again, that's what people do. They buy houses. If they take more risks, for instance, in Denmark, if people would go back in time and buy houses in the most distressed parts of the city, then people would have realized the most return. And if people buy in the safest parts of the city, people are still going to make money, but they're going to make less money. So housing is a risky investment, right? That is the first thing that people must understand. Other than this, because housing has huge transaction costs, and because the benefit of buying a house is that people can use leverage in a way that they can't in many other to purchase many other types of financial assets, right? Is the one type of debt that people can leverage, and where they are usually subsidized around the world. So people should buy the best house that their borrowing capacity can allow them to. And that's not the way that people do it. People try to buy a small apartment or a small house. Then they want to, we're going to move to a better one, to a better one, to a better one. First of all, when you do this, you are not benefiting as much from leverage. You're not benefiting from the fact that your income may be rising, especially if you're young. And you have to pay transaction costs every time that you change houses. So actually, the best house to buy is the house that you plan to stay for 20 to 30 years. This way, you minimize all of this. The only downside of this is that you become less mobile yourself, which means that you become less likely to either move or to accept job opportunities that take you away from your lovely, lovely house.
So what you're saying is that someone should buy the house that fits their needs in 20 years?
That it fits their long-term needs.
Long-term.
It doesn't need to be 20 years, right? So for instance, it may be 5 years. It doesn't matter. But you need to want to be there for at least 20 years. Otherwise, it makes no sense. Otherwise, you rent, and then you purchase something when you decide that you want to settle down for a long time. Otherwise, you're going to pay a lot of transaction costs, and there are alternative financial assets that you can buy that are going to give you good rates of return as well.
So you should want to live there for at least 20 years.
That is the ideal purchase, yes.
Is that because it mitigates the risk of a recession and then your price of your house falling, and it then would go recover?
No, it's not about that. The moment that you buy a house, you stop paying rent, right? That is what people say. Good, fine. But the thing is, the price of your house in the long run should give you the rate of return plus something else. That's why people buy real estate. And even if it doesn't, if you buy a house, sell a house, buy another house, sell another house, the amount of transaction costs you're paying is so enormous that whatever gains you're making, you're going to limit them by the amount of transaction costs you must pay. It's like think about Warren Buffett. What was his strategy? Why was he that successful? Partly because he bought and held, right, for long periods of time. He realized that buying and selling all the time created all sorts of transaction costs. Today, in stock markets, is not a problem anymore because transaction costs are low, but not for real estate. For real estate, transaction costs can be 10% of a property, right? Including taxes, including moving out, including the time that you may have two houses and you're paying for two, or the time that you're renting while you're looking. It's insane. And moving all the time actually decreases life satisfaction. There's even a study done in Denmark about this. People who had to move many times over their childhood, they have much less life satisfaction, much more mental health issues than people who had some stability for a long time. So the idea that, oh, I'm going to have this small house, have kids, and then move to a bigger one, then move to a bigger one. There's a lot of instability and a lot of uncertainty on that. And again, the only reason that you don't buy the house that you want for 20 years is if nobody's going to lend you the money. But that is usually not the case. Usually people don't get the biggest loan that they are allowed to.
Right.
That's what I would do if I were buying real estate. I will get a house that allows me to get the biggest loan that a bank will give me, especially if I am younger and my income is going to rise.
Yeah. And also I remember you talking about how if you are young and want to live in different places, you shouldn't buy a house as then it anchors you down and it can limit your career prospects as well.
Yeah, that is something that you do it unconsciously, right? If you know you're doing it, is less of a problem. If you're like, no, I'm buying a house, but I'm still mobile because if somebody gives me an offer, I will figure it out. That is fine, but that is not how people behave. The way that people behave on average is that the moment that I have a house somewhere, I want a job next to the house because that's what maximizes my life satisfaction, right? For instance, in Shanghai, when I went to work at NYU Shanghai, we had faculty housing, and then when we moved out or we were moved out because the owner of the faculty housing sold, uh, we rented an apartment literally next to the campus. My quality of life was absurd. I could go play tennis, go home to shower, then go to university. Like the quality of life was amazing. I could only do that because we were renting. And NYU moved, and we're most likely going to move next to NYU again. And my life, the quality of my life is still going to be very high. But if I had bought that apartment, I would have to sell that apartment, or I would now have a commute of 45 minutes that I cannot avoid because I'm not renting, right? So renting, especially in stable markets, and especially if your income is rising, is not a bad option as people make you think, because you can maximize your life satisfaction in a way that you cannot with housing, unless, of course, your life is tied to that community next to the property that you just bought.
I think for the average American and Brit, at the minute, it's very hard for them to buy a house because they're left in a situation where their rent is taking up all of their income and they can't save for a deposit. So how
That
would you sort of tackle this situation, whether because they might look to buy a house that's going to be good for 5 years, but then they can't actually maybe afford that house. They can only afford something small.
Yeah, the advice that I'm giving here is an advice for people in rich countries
Right.
and people from upper middle class and above.
Mm.
The problem with personal finance around the world is that people try to make to give advice to everybody.
Right.
This advice, like, doesn't matter to somebody that is poor. Again, I've been lower middle class in Brazil. None of that, none of what we're talking about would matter unless somebody could expect their income to rise over time. When you talk to me about people that cannot save for a deposit, what it's telling me is that people are poor or people have liquidity issues. In both cases, none of this applies.
Right.
Right, and that is what I think people get it wrong, is that the advice that I'm making is not for everybody, none whatsoever. There is a reason that I'm teaching this course here in Denmark, and I'm not teaching this course, let's say, in Brazil. It doesn't make any sense unless I'm talking to the Brazilian elite, which I don't necessarily want to do. But it's the same in China. Like, this advice makes no sense in China. We're talking about a society where housing has yielded 300% of return in the last 20 years. Explaining to somebody that housing is not necessarily the ideal investment in a society where everybody was a farmer and buying a house was the best bet that they could make, again, it makes no sense. But in Europe, it's different. Living in Copenhagen is very expensive, but buying a house in Copenhagen is also very expensive. At the moment that you buy a house, you have much more limited options in terms of mobility. People think, oh, I'm just going to rent my house. It doesn't work like this. There are huge transaction costs with renting as well. There is the time sink that is renting. There are problems that your apartment may have, and you have to solve it from abroad. It doesn't work like this. The moment that I'm renting, any problem in the apartment is not mine. The moment that I own something, and if I'm renting to somebody or if I'm living there myself, any problem in the apartment, I have to spend my time there. And if people like spending their time doing bricolage, that's fine. I'm not one of them. And many people are not. But people sometimes think that they don't have a choice. They do.
I was really fascinated by the economic and cultural factors that you explained were behind financial decision making. Can you explain how generational economic trauma and social norms can influence people when making these financial decisions?
Yeah, it's very easy to explain. I wrote about this in my New York Times article. The generational trauma traumatized my brothers and traumatized me for a while as well. Because we were growing up lower middle class in Brazil, we would move every 2 years because rents, hyperinflation rents, stuff like this, and moving is so bad for your mental health when you're young. This precarity of where you're living, that my two brothers, the first paycheck that they got, the first thing that they wanted was to buy an apartment, and they did it, and they bought very bad apartments in very bad parts of Rio because they thought that's what they should do. They buy an apartment. Once they start making more money, they buy a better apartment. Once they make more money, they start buying another apartment. But that is not true because their income grew relatively quick, and but moving is not that easy. So they ended up living for a long time in apartments that were horrible. Like, my brother would literally have to okay, I cannot go out because if I come back after a certain hour, there is the chance that there will be a shootout, and I don't want to risk it and stuff like this. If you're making decisions like this just because you want an apartment, it's because you've been traumatized. And it's the same here. It's the same here in Denmark, especially for people from families where either grandparents or parents suffered for some reason. Even Danish people like have gambling problems in their families and stuff like this. And people say, no, like, I need security, I need safety, because I know what it is to go through hard times, and because these families know what it is to go through hard times, they think that those hard times can happen at any moment. So they spend their lives trying to escape this. And the problem with trauma is that you never escape it. Because if every day of your life you are afraid that a crisis will come, it doesn't matter if the crisis comes or not, because you're going to spend the rest of your life thinking that it can come next day. And that is not maybe the most productive way to live one's life, especially if you're upper middle income, you are in a society that will take care of you if you make money, etc., or if you don't make enough money, etc., etc., etc.
So you say that you took a different path from your
Yep.
brothers and you acted differently according to, obviously you all had the same trauma, but you took a different path. What would you say made you overcome that economic trauma and make better financial decisions?
So I'm an economist, right? I learn, and also I'm a risk taker, and my
Mm,
brothers are not. So the trauma in my case was played out a little differently. Why? Because I would make different decisions than my brothers. I would make different decisions than everybody, right? I'm in China. I'm like everybody at my university says, "Wow, like like the path of doing a PhD in Brazil is that you become tenure in Brazil and you live your life in Brazil."
mm,
And I chose to go to China. So I'm a risk taker. But the problem with being a risk taker, when everybody around tells you not to take any risks, is that you don't understand what you're doing, or you feel guilty about taking risks. So I had to learn. And part of the way that I teach finance is because I had to learn to be comfortable with the decisions that we're making, because at the end of the day, I wanted to take risks and I didn't care. I knew that if I were to fall, I could get up by
mm,
myself.
mm,
But I was not afraid of failing in the same way that most people in my family are, and I had to understand why. Why am I different? And in the end, I'm not different.
right.
It's just that I'm a risk taker. In that way, I'm different. But otherwise, I'm making financial decisions that are compatible with my risk aversion profile. But more importantly, I understand why I'm making them. And my brothers do not, or did not. Again, they are doing very well. And all the sacrifices that they made in their youth, while I was borrowing money and traveling and doing fun things, and meanwhile they were saving to buy this bad apartment somewhere in Rio. All the sacrifice was in vain because they are now doing really well. So the value of these initial apartments in their portfolio today is negligible. So they made 10 years of sacrifice that they didn't need to do. But again, they were kind of comfortable with that. So I understand it to an extent, but I also understand that they could have made better choices. I still remember one story that my brother told me, that a friend had, because they travel so much for work, he had a lot of miles. He wanted to ski in Chile. And he told my brother, look, I will get you a ticket because I have enough miles that I can get you a ticket. You just need to get a hotel and we go skiing for the week. My boy said, no, because I need to have the money for the deposit on the new apartment.
Mm,
That apartment that is now meaningless for him, but well, again, maybe he would go to ski and break his leg and he would be worse off, but I don't believe in that. I believe that he could have had a little bit more fun in his youth than he did, because he was only worried about safety, safety, safety.
mm,
It's not the best way to spend somebody's lives.
no.
Yeah.
Would you say that you how you differ was, did you accumulate more knowledge? Did you research more about the trauma and how to overcome it? Or would you say that you were just more open to risk?
Everything, right? I'm a finance professor,
Yeah,
so I have to understand this in a way that my brothers do not.
right,
So I think that is it. But also I start trading and I start making money, losing money. It's like,
right.
okay, so well, like, why am I doing this? It's like I
Mm,
need to understand what I'm doing. So that is self-reflection
mm,
plus being a finance professor and thinking, understanding financial markets,
mm,
and a little bit of risk profile as well. I think it's everything, right? It's hard for me to separate in
right.
myself what are the factors that led me to the way that I behave today.
Mm,
Even though that's what I like about coming here, is trying to see how people make decisions. It's
mm,
fascinating for me.
yes. Um, can you explain what the utility function is and how one should go about defining their individual function in order for them to make the rational decision for them based on their what makes them happy?
Yeah, but it's a function is just that. Is that what makes one happy?
Mm,
Most people don't know what makes them happy, right?
right.
I remember talking to a student of mine, And the student was like, no, no, because I need the grade so I can do this, so I can do that, so I can get this money, so I can go to investment bank a lot. Okay. And then I stopped the student and said, okay, fine. So you want to make a lot of money. Sure, you want to make a lot of money. So tell me, what is the salary that you envision yourself making in 15 years? Like, you are succeeded. So you've done everything you wanted. No, no, I want to make $1 million a year. Fine. You're making $1 million a year. Perfect. Now tell me, what is it that you're going to do with this $1 million? And the student stopped. He had no clue.
Yeah.
Right? In other words, he was told that he needed to make money. He was ambitious. Fine. I don't care about that. I'm ambitious as well. But I met most of my ambitions gladly. But why? Why do you want $1 million? Do you want $1 million because you wanna go on a space shuttle? That's fine. That's one reason. You want $1 million because you want to have the largest house in your community? Fine, sure. You want to show everybody that you're the boss? I don't care. I find that lame, but that is my personal opinion. You can do whatever you want. But what is money for? Money is means to an end. And that is what people don't understand. Especially, again, this advice is for people in upper middle income classes in rich countries, or maybe rich classes in middle income countries. Money is means to an end. And the way we behave towards money is wrong, because we make money an end in itself. We make work an end in itself. Work is a way to get money. That is a way for you to fulfill your life. If somebody takes away my job and says, oh, we're going to take away your job, but here's $2 billion. I say, great. I know what to do with my life. Like, the job that I have is the means for me to do what I want. What I want is to, like yesterday, as we talk, yesterday I was in by heaven in the extreme death metal concert that was free here in Copenhagen. That's what I want to do, right? I want to, if I was independently wealthy, maybe I would go to more concerts. I don't know. I don't think I would, because again, I go to as many as I want. But that's what I mean. Like, I know what I want in life. What I want in life is to travel, to go to museums, to concerts, to and I want, and I do it the other way around. I decide how much money I need for my life, and then I work to get the money. People do it the other way around. They said, oh, I need to work very hard to get the money, and then I need to find a way to spend it. But then I'm guilty, because if I'm spending money, then how I'm going to save, blah, blah.
Yeah.
This relationship that people have with money is very unhealthy. People think of money as an end in itself, and it shouldn't be.
Yeah, I think it's very common, definitely in England. A lot of my friends are like, I want to become rich. But then when you ask them, where do you see yourself? What do you want to do with your life? They don't really know. So they don't really know why they're making the money.
And that's that. Yeah, and you find them snorting cocaine in nightclubs in London at 3 a.m., not knowing why they are snorting cocaine or having any fun, and think that they need to have fun. That the way to have fun is to snort cocaine. Again, I'm making a joke. You can edit that out. It's not a problem. But
No, it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's also with social media. People think, I think people are brainwashed, especially because they have.
I disagree with that.
You
Sorry.
think?
Of course not. I'm talking about generational trauma. So I'm talking about something that has been there for forever. Social media is not changing any of this.
But I think I think social media is affecting people's relationship with money, because it's showing them that to be happy.
But it's affecting people's relationship with money, maybe for the better. Because now at least people have a goal. My goal is to be Instagram model. Sure. I don't know why you want that goal, but sure. But now I know why I'm making the money.
But then I don't think they actually think about their utility function.
No, they don't. But
they just think, I want money to buy this, thinking that will bring them happiness.
I agree with that. But at least now they know why they're working that hard.
Right.
Because in the past it's like, no.
Is that rational though?
Everything. So it is rational. Why not? If I don't know what I want and somebody tells me you need to have a Louis Vuitton bag, it's rational. Why is that not rational? It's rational. Right? If people, again, you are judging people's choices. I don't judge people's choices.
Right.
Let people do whatever they want. And again, if what they really want is like, no, I wanna be an investment banker so I can snort as much cocaine as I want in a nightclub in London, I don't agree with that choice, but it's your choice, it's not my choice, right? And again, what social media is doing is changing people's goals, but it has nothing to do with money. It's changing people's goals because that's what social media does. But the way that the relationship that people had with money before social media was fucked up, was bad.
Right.
So social media is not making it worse. It was bad in any case.
Because of economic trauma, you'd say
Yeah,
that
exactly.
their relationship with money
No.
was already bad.
Yeah,
But
precisely.
you don't think social media is making people's relationship with money worse?
I don't know. Again,
No.
I think that people's relationship with money was bad before social media and is bad today. I don't think it's necessarily worse.
I would agree, but I would say it's making it worse.
Sure.
Just because
Fine.
people are less likely to spend because they're more likely to save for the big house. But then when they get the big house, they're not happy because, like,
But they were not happy before.
right,
Like they would spend it, they wouldn't be happy because they don't know why they're spending. They would feel guilty about spending. That is my point. Is like
right,
like in the past. In fact, if you are saying that people are saving to buy a big house, it's actually good economic behavior. It's not bad. But again, my point is not economics, right?
right,
It's like there is this studies about basic income in which like people care about if people are going to work more. People care if people are going to look for the doctors. Like, no, basic income is good because people can do whatever they want with their money. It's
right,
not your job to tell what people should do with their money. Your job is to educate people so they can make choices that they want to make.
right.
But if in the end of the day their choice is to emulate a TikTok star, again, I don't like that.
Right.
I don't do it.
Yeah.
But again, I don't go around policing what people do with their lives. What I want is that people make better decisions that suit them. What I cannot do is say that I agree or disagree with those decisions. Those are two different realms.
Okay.
And I agree that social media is changing people's goals,
Yeah.
right? But that is another discussion altogether. Is one a discussion that I do not know if one I'm capable of saying anything coherent about, but also is a discussion that why do we care about what people do with their lives, in the sense of if they want to follow this TikTok star, why is that bad for me or for you? Just because we don't like TikTok?
I guess it's because I value
Yeah, precisely.
I value the collective, and I also think that we have a social responsibility. For example, I've been given the funding to come to Copenhagen to receive financial advice from people who have more experience than me, and I feel like there's a lot of people that don't have these opportunities that are fed media as their form of education, and I feel like it is everyone's responsibility if they feel that way to educate
that is
people.
your morality, and your morality is beautiful, but it's your morality, and now you are trying to impose your morality on other people that I disagree with. Right? I agree. Again, these are your choices, and I do think you have to. One thing is saying, look, people, you have this option as well. You have this option of social responsibility. I do think people should be educated in the sense of, look, TikTok stardom or copying TikTok people is one way to live life if you want to do it. But look, there's this other way of being socially conscient and improving society. Right. But at the end of the day, fundamentally, it's people's choices.
That's
if
true.
you educate them,
that's true.
And at the end of the day, they say, I agree with you in principle, but look at that. Look at the house that person has. I want that house. Sure. Okay. Like, again, like you cannot, I do not impose my morality on anybody.
Right. I agree with that.
Right. So in that I disagree. I don't think we should go around telling people. So this is one thing about financial literacy discourse that I don't like. is guilting people into behavior that you think is compatible with a good life. Right? So you say, oh, you should be saving more. You should be saving more. So you're trying to guilt people into behavior. Or you should take more risk. You should. No. As I said before, in this society, in Denmark where we are right now, people can afford to take more risks. But if at the end of the day, people want to behave in a very risk-averse manner, it's their choice.
Yeah.
What this society doesn't do perfectly is that instead of having this open discussion about financial literacy, they use shaming or other forms of social coercion to make people behave in a risk-averse manner. And a lot of people who are not risk-averse, they resent that without understanding why they're resenting that. So that is, for me, is what financial education is about. Financial education is about here are the real options that you have. Here's the menu of options that you have. Here's what you can do with your life. And yes, what you want to do with your life is to make as much money as possible just for yourself and ignore the rest of society, at the end of the day, you cannot polish that choice.
That's everyone's right to make their own choices. I agree.
I disagree with their choice, maybe.
Right.
But it's like, I do not want people not to have that choice.
Right. I agree.
Or to be shaming to doing something just because they're supposed to.
Yeah.
That is also something that I disagree with. Like in the same way, again, I remember there are many examples, like going to Angola to teach in Angola and people trying to compete on how many children they have. Again, it's their society, and I understand what is going on. And if somebody goes and don't want to have children, they're going to be shaming to having children. In other societies, they're going to be shaming to having one child. So shaming is a very strong way to control people's behavior. And in some ways it's necessary, right? So if you don't have, that's, for instance, how you stop crime from working. People think that it's just by punishing people. It's not true, right? If you just punish people, like the US punishes everybody a lot, and crime in the US is not going down. Because it's not about just punishing people. It's about building a society in which people are ashamed to commit a crime at all. So shaming may be necessary, but shaming is certainly not necessary in finance. It's not necessary in debt behavior. So people are told all their lives that taking on debt is bad. Other than people take on debt to buy their houses and their cars, and nobody has a problem with that. So that's what I don't understand. Like, that is, you need to make decisions that take out this moral aspect of getting debt is wrong or like buying a house is good. It's like, no, it may be good, it may be bad, depends on the circumstance, depends on interest rates, on the rate of the mortgage or whatever. It depends on your life's goals. So you want to have a summer house so you can take your children every year, then buy the summer house. Oh, you need to buy a summer house. As I was talking to a friend of mine, all his friends are pressuring him to buy a summer house. It's like, no, I don't have a summer house. Why do you want me to have a summer house? I want to spend my summers in different places. Just because you made that choice doesn't mean that I have to make that choice. And he actually has to fight against his friends somewhat. And that is what I disagree with. The shaming and the guilt that goes into turning people's decision making into some moral arguments. I don't like that very much.
I agree. What financial advice would you give to someone in their early 20s? And do you regret any of the financial decisions you made in your 20s?
So again, my advice is dependent on the context of the person. First of all, understand what is your risk profile. Understand what you want in life, and use that to pursue your goals. If your goal is to become just rich for becoming rich, that's fine. But understand why you want to become rich. Understand why you want to accumulate money. Do you want power or do you want money? What is it that you want from life? Do you want, oh, no, maybe what I want is to have so this also happens here. Sometimes people are shaming to having children. Sometimes people are shaming to not having children, right? You want to have children, have children. You don't want to have children, don't have children. Understand the choices that you have available to you. Understand that the younger you are, the more risks you can take. Understand that the younger you are, the easier it is to take on debt if it is available to you. right? But if you don't want to follow the norms, if you want to have a very risk averse life, do it. Just don't feel guilty about any of this. That is my advice, is understand the choices you're making so you don't feel guilty about any of them.
Yeah, I think also I do a lot of research into psychology and I'm very interested in that field. And I guess that maybe the way to start would be to, I guess, do like self-development work because a lot of people grow up with, I guess, how they want what their parents want for them and
Yeah,
they make decisions based off of what society tells them. And I think to do the work to really think about who am I, like what pressure do I have, and recognize where you're being pressured in order to get rid of that pressure, get rid of that shame, so you can truly make the best financial decisions for yourself.
exactly. And at the end of the day, it may be that you're going to end up doing exactly what your parents want,
Right.
but you're going to do it because you also want it. And
Yeah.
it's much better this way.
Yeah.
It's much better to make a decision that says, oh, okay, right? I'm doing it. My parents love what I did, and I want to do what I want to do, right? Because this idea, your parents sometimes constrain your decisions because, again, if you don't work on yourself, why
Definitely.
wouldn't I? Like,
Definitely.
if you don't know what you want, yeah, I'm gonna tell you what you want. Like, go do this so you can make more money. So one day you're gonna work on yourself, but at least have the money to do that. So I also don't begrudge parents that want that as well. Like, they also been traumatized in some ways. Sometimes they had to do their and the final message is this: is like in many rich societies, people don't need to work hard to survive anymore. And sometimes older people complain about this. Oh, these people are lazy. No, 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 you don't understand. That is precisely the point. You become a rich society so people can choose to work hard if they want and choose not to work hard if they don't. Societies that were poor in the past, everybody has to work hard because they need to survive. Again, you cannot have it both ways. You want to go back to being a poor society? Everybody will have to work hard, right? That is fine if that is what you want. But you cannot say, "Oh, my child doesn't know the value of money." Yeah, because you're rich, because you live in a rich society. That is the whole point. And again, your child should not know the value of money. Money is means to an end. It's precisely because that your child shouldn't know the value of money that they'll say, "Oh, okay, I'm gonna work toward that life, so I can make that money, so I can live the life that I want." And you take money out of the equation. The problem is that many people cannot take money out of the equation because they had to survive at some point. And money was the only objective, was money equaled survival. And again, we are not hunter-gatherers anymore, but a lot of people behave like they are hunter-gatherers, but instead of trying to acquire food, they try to acquire money. Why? Because I don't know, you're supposed to, and I have met a lot of people who are going to die with a lot of money in the bank and a lot of missed opportunities for doing what they want to do in their lives.
Can you explain to those who don't know what Friedman's permanent income hypothesis model is about, and whether you would say that this model can be applied to all backgrounds, or would you only say middle to
Yeah, you
upper?
cannot be applied again. The personal income hypothesis supposes that your income is gonna rise until you reach your peak earnings capacity, usually 35 to 55 years old, which means that when you're very young, you should borrow, you should take risks. You shouldn't be concerned about investing or compound interest of any of that crap, especially if your income is rising above the interest rates of the investments you can make. Then it's really a waste of time. And your peak earnings capacity, you pay the borrowing that you made when you're young, you borrow for your old age. Poor people cannot do that because first of all, poor people cannot guarantee that their income is going to rise. Their income is very volatile. They don't know what income they have the next month sometimes. So no, it doesn't apply to everybody. But the idea is that you smooth your consumption over time. So, and that is the idea, right? You don't increase your consumption as you get more money. When you're younger, you borrow money. When you're older, you save money. When you're really old, you save money. And if you do it that correctly, you leave something for your children, but you don't leave that much. And you leave them good education, and they will do the same.
Do you think that um, obviously in Denmark they have access to SU loans, and
Yeah.
you would say to take the maximum, but for me in the UK, it doesn't work like that, and I don't think I would be able to get a loan out in my situation. So how would I?
That's what people do, is they borrow from their parents. So
Right,
you use the credit line that your parents have.
right,
Just ask them to borrow on your behalf as much as they can, and you
right.
pay them back. Work hard and pay them back.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah, but you don't want to do that because of also your parents are not going to agree, because they think that that is bad, is morally bad and stuff like this. But that's how they say,
Well,
like,
if I could justify it, and I
yeah,
think
if you no,
I think so.
no. My point is, you can borrow money to like travel business class. So what? You work harder and you pay back.
I mean, I don't think my dad would fund me
Exactly.
to
I
fly
don't.
business class, but if I was setting up a good project that he thought could make a return, I think he
Yeah,
would.
of course. Like
And it's less risky because if you don't
sure.
pay it back, you're not gonna,
I
you
still
know.
prefer you set up your project. I'll fly business class. That's fine.
Yes. Okay. Um, and what age would you say young people should start financial planning? And would you recommend them, if they can apply the PH model, to use that over other models?
So financial, in my opinion, financial modeling is, if you don't have utility, if you don't know what your utility, there is no point in financially planning anything.
Right.
Financial planning is not a plan of money; it's a plan of life. So
Mm,
you can start when you're 10, you can start when you're 15, you can start when you're 20. But first, you need to define what is the kind of life
right.
you wanna live. If you don't have that set up, no amount of financial planning is useful.
Right.
So that is what I have learned over time, is that most people don't know what they want,
Right.
or they're open to change, or they're open to like see where the wind takes me, which is also fine. But if you are open to see where the wind takes you, then you don't need financial planning,
Mm.
because you don't know what you want, and it's
So
fine.
so maybe the best advice for someone in their early 20s would to, I guess, spend time doing things and pursuing things that they like, to sort of figure out
Yeah,
what they do want to do in the future and spend their life doing.
yeah, like that, plan for a future. Like, um, even it doesn't matter if I used to be a death metal kid. Doesn't mean that I don't want to have a future. Yeah, I didn't care if I died young, because that is supposed that's what young people in poor countries do, right? Your life is meaningless for a while. But it doesn't mean that you're not gonna develop a life. And if you're gonna develop a life, in my case, I never felt that I wanted to settle down anywhere, because I always wanted to have options. So I don't go around buying property. Why I'm gonna spend time, or spend energy dealing with real estate if I can rent wherever I want to live? But that is me. I still remember my mom trying to convince my wife that we should have kids, because she couldn't convince me. So she did what sexist people do, right? They went to the wife. Uh, and my mom is sexist, unfortunately. I cannot deny that. Um, so she went to my wife, like trying to convince us to have a kid. And we never, my wife also did it once, to have another one. She has one, my stepson. But so 10 years later, my mother told my wife, oh, you're right, I was wrong. Like, you live on airplanes, you can be here, you can be there, you are in Europe. Like it would make no sense for the two of you to have a child together. That child would be brought on an airplane, or like, and it's like, see,
Mm,
like, we knew while we were making that choice. You didn't, because you wanted us to make the choice that everybody's supposed to make, right? It's like, you get married, have a kid, give me a grandkid, whatever.
right.
It's not our choice. But again, it doesn't apply to everybody. It applies to us. Our
Mm,
model applies to us. Your model applies to you.
right.
But when everybody's model applies to everybody, don't feel guilty. If you want to follow a TikTok star, follow a TikTok star, but know why you're doing it. I want to have that life, sure. I don't know why you want it, but it's for you to figure that out, not for us.
Yeah. With the permanent income model, would you say that the way to plan it would be to figure out what your smooth consumption level would be like, and then
Yeah,
figure out how you can like maintain that level?
yeah. So it's like, I do it the other way around, right? I said, this is the life. This is the life that I want. How much money do I need to make to have that life?
Yeah.
And I work towards that goal, and I don't want to work harder. Well, I'm gonna work harder.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can always work hard. I can work for the Goldman Sachs, try to become a millionaire. So what?
Mm,
I'll have more money. but I don't want to do cocaine in nightclubs in London, so I don't need more money.
Hmm. And how would you define financial literacy? And do you think it is the responsibility of parents, schools, or broader society to educate those who have poor financial literacy?
Nobody has financial literacy. Financial literacy is understand why you're making financial decisions. Most people don't, so we take shortcuts. When you tell people you should save 20% of your income, this is a shortcut. It's going to work for a lot of people because they don't have financial literacy. Financial literacy is being comfortable with the financial decisions that you make, and being comfortable with the process, not the outcomes. If I buy a stock, I know that there's a probability that I'm going to lose money, but I trust the process. The outcome is something different. And people talk about financial literacy and they tie it to outcomes. It is the responsibility of society, but it's another discussed and underdeveloped part of financial markets, for the simple fact that money and morality go too closely together, and to develop something that is real financial literacy that takes away the morality from financial decisions is something that very few societies are prepared for.
Right. So you'd say that it is broader society's responsibility, or do you think also it should be implemented in schools?
How can you implement it in schools if you don't have the people to teach that, right?
But
You're
but
going to
they
teach
they
people. You're going to teach people the shortcuts.
but they could make a program like record something and then show it and discuss it. Like there are ways to implement a program in schools.
There may be, um, but again, you need you need a broad agreement in society that we were going to disassociate money from morality. That what we want from people is that they live a good life, not that they work and pay taxes.
Right.
And I don't think we are ready to have that discussion right now. Certainly not in Denmark, but in
Right.
most places in the world, because again, a lot of financial literacy gives people freedom, and freedom means that people are going to make different choices, and we are not very good at accepting people with different choices. So I don't think I
Right.
think it's about like, first of all, parents cannot help because parents have been traumatized mostly,
Right.
or if they haven't been traumatized, they haven't studied the subject enough to teach their children, right?
Right.
So I think is a self-discovery quest for those that want at first.
Right.
Once their number is big enough, then we can discuss next steps.
So you think that most governments I mean it's quite hard to comprehend because I guess a democratic society with a government, that
Yep.
government is set up to make GDP to then create like services for people,
No, no, no. It's
but
more. No, no. It's not about that. There is no ill intent. There is no malice.
there's no
It's
malicious
no, no,
intent.
no. It's
No.
much simpler than this. It's like, again, the people in the government also don't know financial literacy.
Right.
So how they're going to make a decision for financial literacy that they do not understand,
Right.
right?
Right. So
So
I
it's
guess
like
the
this
people
is
making the big decisions about it don't even have the knowledge themselves.
exactly to
Right.
to to understand what it is like permanent thinking hypothesis. Like you're telling people not to save, you're telling young people to borrow.
Right.
You first have to convince them that this
Right.
is viable. Like this is a very hard thing to do. I can barely
Yeah.
convince a group of rich students in Denmark. Those I can, but
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
like they have to convince their parents. It's not the other way around. So you're
Right.
looking at this the other way around. It's the young people who have to teach the older people in this case,
Right.
and I don't see that happening, right? 'Cause older people won't listen.
Which is why then the young people need to still
Yeah,
stick with their decision and teach their children.
exactly. Or yeah, precisely, and learn about their decisions and maybe talk to each other.
Right.
Grassroots youth movements.
Very good.
That is
Very
the
good.
way. Although I'm old, so why are young people maybe shouldn't listen to me, but that is something else.
I think it's excellent. Yeah. You've very much changed my mindset
Good.
on right, now is the time to take the risk,
Yeah, of course it is.
borrow the money,
Yeah.
because we're all so,
You're not gonna do that after you have 10 kids.
no.
No.
All my friends, like, it's just everyone's like, well, people are tight with their money, but I feel like some people that do have money and are tight with money because they're like, oh, I need this money for my future. But
Exactly, but they
then,
don't know why.
but they're very intelligent. I know they have a lot of potential to make money, and they'll look back and think, why didn't I spend the money?
Exactly.
So I completely agree with it.
Business class.
Yeah.
Although people in England are also short, like the Danes, so they don't need
Um,
business class. Only tall people need it.
right. So for someone looking to improve their financial literacy, how would you advise them to do that?
That is hard. I don't know.
Right.
That I don't know. Take my course? I don't know.
Yeah, take your
I really
course.
don't know. There are very few. It's not. You need to understand financial markets, right? In a way that you just need to understand financial markets. Take a course in finance, but even that is hard.
Because they don't really teach the decision making
No,
behind
they
it. They
don't
just
exactly.
teach how the market operates, but they don't know how
Correct.
to make the decisions.
Correct. So I don't know. That is.
You need to clone yourself
Yeah,
and
maybe.
put you in each
Yeah,
school.
maybe.
That's
Yeah,
that's
I
the
don't know.
answer.
Maybe I should write a book, but it's not gonna sell, so it doesn't matter. I actually have a poem written. Maybe I'm gonna.
I think you should write a book.
I have one book
I
written,
think
but it's
it's
in Portuguese. I'm gonna. Maybe I can take that book and transform it to English. I
I
don't know.
think that's an excellent
Yeah.
idea. Um, I'll promote the book to all my
Okay.
friends. um, so I wanted to talk a bit about emotional intelligence because I think this is like a underspoken about topic, and I think that when you are able to have emotional intelligence, and I'm going to define it as the ability to recognize, understand, manage, and influence one's own emotions and the emotions of others. So, in simple terms, you're able to, I guess, identify how you feel about things, articulate it. How would you say that has a role? And people who have more emotional intelligence are
I
better able
never.
to make financial decisions.
If I say that I have emotional intelligence, my wife is gonna laugh so hard, and like I is like I no, I have no clue. I yeah, introspection about myself. I think emotional intelligence is more about how you relate to people without being an asshole.
Right.
And that I don't know if I have that much, but I try. But no, there may be. I don't think it's emotional intelligence. It's just introspection and self-reflection. Understand what you want and what you're capable of, because imposter syndrome plays a role and stuff like this. And fear from the future, right? Fear about the future. Everybody is fearful about the future, but people don't realize that it can be symmetric, right?
Mm.
That you can be afraid of the future, but there is also a certain percentage. There is a certain no. Let me try it again. People don't understand that the future can also be good. That
Right.
there is a large probability that you're also going to be better in the future than you are today. Why people look only about the bad outcomes? That's what I don't understand. Why people only plan for the bad outcomes?
That's
Nobody
true.
plans for the good outcomes.
That's true. Daniel Gilbert did research and he found that also people's preferences and they also underestimated how much they would change. So I feel like,
Exactly. See, if you know that your preferences are going to change,
yeah,
then maybe there is no there is no point in planning too much as well.
that's true. You need to have flexibility and
Yeah,
an open
yeah.
mindedness.
Which is one
Um,
more reason not to buy the first house that comes your way.
definitely, definitely. How important do you think strengthening social relationships is in living a meaningful life and also in gaining financial success?
You like this is very easy. We are social animals. There is no way to go through life without social relations. That is like this has been shown time and time again. That you need social, so you need, and that's what I mean. Like peer pressure is not only bad. Peer pressure is also good. Peer pressure makes you work sometimes, even if you don't want to work. Makes you work harder sometimes because you want to achieve what your friends have. So peer pressure can also be good. But social relations, you need social relations. You need to understand when to follow your friends, when not to follow your friends, which is especially true in Denmark, where your friends are going to try to pressure you into doing what everybody's doing at the same time. So people have children at the same time sometimes. You may need to consider, yeah, a lot of times following everybody is a good idea if I want to have that life, yes. But you also should know when to deviate. Only introspection can tell you that. Unless you want to feel guilty all the time, which is what people do.
Right. I want to talk a little bit about the game of trust simulation we played because I
Yeah.
thought that was very interesting. So, this simulation uses mathematical modeling and game theory to explain how trust evolves in society. So, a brief explanation is each round the players have to choose whether to cheat or cooperate. The playoffs for cooperating were 2 coins each, or 3 coins to the one who cheated and -1 to the one who cooperated, or 0-0 if both choose to cheat. The simulation found that generally the most successful strategy was the copy kitten, which chooses to cooperate until cheated on twice, as this strategy fosters trust and cooperation but also discourages exploitation. Have you recognized a time in your life when you've adopted this behavior, and do you think this behavior is the key for generating a trustful society?
So trust, if I could define why our country is successful in one word, and I only had one word, I will use trust. Trust embodies the idea that your actions are gonna have outcomes that are predictable. That's it. That's the definition of trust, right? So it means that if I treat you good, I can expect you to treat me well as well. If I treat you well, I can expect you to treat me well. It means that if I go to a government official, that I will get the service that I need to get. It means that if I open a business, I'm gonna make the money from that business, and then nobody's gonna steal that business from me. And trust is fundamental in society. Without trust, you're never gonna open a company. Without trust, you don't even want to vote because whatever government you put into power is going to steal from you. Again, that is fundamentally what happens in middle income countries that get stuck into the middle income trap.
Right.
So the game as well shows that we should allow you should allow some measure of errors and mistakes, because you can never tell if people made a mistake because they don't know, if they make a mistake because out of malice. So in other words, a good society is one in which you allow people to make mistakes as long as they don't make mistakes all the time. Right. And that is something important as well. And again, trust is fundamental in society. That is why Scandinavia is a rich society. This is why, for instance, you have problems in countries like the US, where the trust in the political system used to be much higher, and now it's being eroded. Same with the UK, and you can see that what is happening is that the British economy is not doing very well. That inequality is a problem. That crime is rising in the US. Why? Again, in one word, trust. So understanding how to build trust is fundamental in society. One of the things that this society does very well is that it encourages people to trust each other. This is very hard to do, especially the larger you are. And people say, oh, but Denmark is not that large of a society. No, but like trust requires repeated interactions. And in a city like Copenhagen, you might not have repeated interactions with anybody other than your close friends. And still people trust each other. And they trust institutions. They trust that the government is not just there to ransack the society's coffers. This matters very much. And again, it is understanding how trust evolves and how you can, for instance, look at this. The main topic in Denmark today is likely immigration. Why? Because people believe that you cannot trust immigrants or whatever. Of course you can, but again, you need to understand how this trust evolves. It's not like, oh, they come here and immediately they become Danish people and they understand the trusting society that they arrive. It cannot be that way, because that way doesn't work. But again, you can teach people, you can allow also people to make mistakes, and again, and also eventually not allow people to make repeated mistakes. There are many ways to do it in a much more coherent way than what I see happening and what I see being debated in society today.
Yeah. And the happiness index where the Scandinavian countries have ranked the highest, two of the factors are, do they view their government as corrupt, and also the social support they receive. And I think
Yeah.
here people are very trusting of their government, and there's huge social support, which is very uncommon in you wouldn't British people and Americans,
They don't
they don't
understand.
trust
Yeah.
the government at
Not
all.
anymore. They
They
used to.
don't.
Not anymore. So the thing about the thing about this happiness studies is that that is not the right word. Happiness is individual, it's not social,
Right.
right? Happiness is relative. If everybody, as you say, if everybody trusts the government, nobody's happy. So this study is wrong. It's something
Right.
else.
Okay.
You can, but again, I understand why it's called happiness, because every single society that is not them would like to have that,
Right.
but it doesn't make a society happy.
Right.
It makes a society rich, makes a society developed. People are going to be happy comparing themselves to other people. There is no other way. Unfortunately, for the same reason that it's good that we are social animals, it's also bad that we are social animals. Our happiness is never in absolute terms; it's always in relative terms.
Right.
So that's why I cannot tell that people in Denmark are happier than anywhere else, because they
Right.
only know how to judge themselves according to people that are around them.
Right.
But that this society, that this trust makes this one of the most developed societies in the Western world. Yes,
So
it
how would
does.
you relabel the happiness study? What would you call it? A
Just
measure of what?
development index, whatever you want to call it. It
Development
doesn't.
index.
The label doesn't matter too much to me, right? The
Right.
problem with the label is that the label took over.
Right.
So it's fashionable to say that Scandinavians are happy people. Like, literally talk to them, you're going to see that it's not true. But
Right.
you go to any slum in Rio, people are much happier than people in Denmark, even though they have no money.
Why do you think that is?
That is culture. It's different. Um, you like people here, again, they are not supposed to open up very easily. They use alcohol as lubricants,
Right.
social lubricants
Yeah.
sometimes. There's all these factors.
Yeah.
You are supposed to trust people. Because you're supposed to trust people, you don't need to share much, because you can trust them.
Right.
But if you don't share with somebody in a poor country, how can you trust that person,
Yeah.
right?
I had some interactions with the Danes, and they're very very closed off. Yeah.
Just get them drunk. That is, they know,
The
then they open
key
up.
to connecting with Danes, get them
Yeah,
drunk,
it's
get them
like
drunk.
it's not the difference in Britain though.
I think British people are a bit more open.
That is true.
Bit
That is
bit
true.
more open.
They don't need that. They need alcohol maybe for other reasons. But
Yeah.
yes, correct.
Yes.
Maybe you're right. You're right.
So now I'd like to ask you a few personal questions.
Sure.
So firstly, I'd like to ask you, what areas of research are you most passionate about?
I'm not passionate. This is my job. I'm passionate about everything else but my job. I'm sorry. That doesn't compute. Again,
I would
no, it doesn't compute.
I would say you're passionate about your job.
No, I'm not. Of course not. I'm very good at my job because I need to make a living. Hell
Right.
no. I'm passionate about death metal. Ask me about death metal, tennis, basketball, Dungeons and Dragons. This is comics. Fuck comics. I love comics. Books,
Right.
culture, museums. I'm passionate about all of that. I'm very good at my job. I the thing that I'm an intellectual. So the reason that I'm a professor is to do research that if I must do research,
Right.
it's gonna be the research that I want to do.
But you wouldn't choose to do that research.
Yeah, I would.
Right.
So the research that I choose to do is research that improves the world. So right now is a lot of sustainable finance because again, I saw an opportunity because a lot of sustainability people don't know finance at all, and a lot of finance people do not care about sustainability. So that's where I can have a lot of impact. But no, I refuse. I refuse the label of I'm passionate about my job. No, I
But
don't think you need to be. This is again,
Right.
this is how society tries to control behavior.
Right.
You tell society you must be passionate about your job, and then people are like, why? And then they go, and I've seen this happen, and then they get fired. It's like, you tell me I'm supposed to be passionate about my job, but then you fire me.
Right.
So it's like you're breaking up with me.
Mm.
No, like
So would you say, but the research you do that does positively impact the world, would you not say that's something you're passionate about doing, like making positive impact?
no. I wanna do positive. I most likely would do positive impact in whatever I do. but maybe not through my research, right?
Right.
I don't know. I will try maybe to help people one to one. I
Right.
don't know, but it's like the research that I like doing at the moment is sustainable finance. Not that I like doing. Again, I like playing sports. The research that I choose to do because I'm good at my job. No, it's very important. This framing is very important. The research that I choose to do with the time that I allocate to research is research about sustainable finance, is research about development economics, is research about how to improve the world. I want to improve the world, but I'm not passionate about improving the world. If I was
Right.
passionate about improving the world, I would work for an NGO and get exploited like most people do in the NGO space.
Okay. Interesting. I love your ethos as a professor that you're there to make us the best version of ourselves and not just to get
Correct.
the best grade. I often say to people that, in my opinion, the biggest waste of resources in society is when people do not reach their full potential. So I'd like to ask you where you get this incredible ethos and mindset from and what inspires you to live by it.
Because I'm good at my job. No, it's again, if I have to spend time at my job that I don't want to do, that is what people don't. I don't want to spend time at my job.
Right.
Right. I don't come to Copenhagen to teach. I come to Copenhagen to do everything but teach. I teach so I can afford to do everything that I want to do. But if I'm gonna do my job, I'm gonna do it right. And that is Marty Subrayman, amazing human being. Love him. He used to be the dean at NYU Stern. And he put into words something that I always felt that it was true. And he can say that much better than I can because his research is amazing. Marty told me once, um, uh, he has like 250, 400 papers published in the best journals. He's very successful. Marty is like amazing. And he said, look, 50 years from now, nobody's going to read anything that I wrote. My research is going to be a footnote in the history of finance, and his research is way better than mine. All the impact that I'm going to make in the world is the students that I teach. So if I want the world to be a better place, I have to dedicate myself to teaching. I cannot just maximize my own utility and produce as many papers as I want. Like, okay, I can do that. I can publish maybe fewer papers than I would otherwise. But if I dedicate myself to teaching, it means that I can touch many more people than I would otherwise. And I feel the same way. Like I want to make the world a better place because again, I solved my issues, right? The moment that you plan for the future and you realize that plan, then why not help society grow? Right? I can already go to every death metal. Most death metal concerts are free, especially here. So why not help society? And if I have to teach, if I must teach, to be able to be around Copenhagen, I want to do the best that I can because otherwise, what is the point? Why do suboptimal work? Just because I can?
Yeah.
Like it's very easy, right? That is what I don't understand. Is like,
Yeah.
why wouldn't I want to make people the best? Like in other words, I don't understand the question.
Right.
Why wouldn't I want to do that? Because
Yeah.
okay,
I
maybe
don't think
because
everyone is motivated to have the best outcome for
that
other
is true.
people when they do
No,
their
no, no.
job. So
I understand because it takes a lot of effort.
yeah.
It takes a lot of effort to teach more than the bare minimum.
It's
Or
also your morality, I guess. Like
yeah,
you
but it's my
care.
decision, right?
It's
It's
your
my decision.
decision. Yeah.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
my decision. No, I'm not advocating that people should behave like me. I'm not trying to guilt any other professor in doing the stuff that I want to do. This is the stuff that I want to do.
Yeah.
So I do it. That's it.
Amazing.
This is
Amazing
my
mindset.
choice.
Amazing. Thank you very much for joining me today and answering all my questions. If you'd like to follow Rodrigo on LinkedIn, Instagram, or X, I'll leave your handles in the description below. And I also link the Game of Trust as I think it's very, very good
It is
idea to
very good.
play.
Tusen tak.
Thank you very much. Thank you.